Hello and welcome to the Southern Star's Coronavirus Podcast. I'm Siobhan Cronin, the news editor.
And I'm the editor, Con Downing. Each week on our podcast, we talk to the people at the centre of the COVID-19 pandemic in West Cork and beyond. We will also take a look at that week's newspaper and how our reporters are covering the pandemic and some other news.
And this week we will also have some new music from three members of a Ballydehob family who cover a wonderful John Prine song in tribute to the late American singer-songwriter who had strong links with Ireland. Also in this week's podcast, I will be talking to Mizen's independent TD Michael Collins, who was first elected to the Dáil in 2016. A very consistent contributor to Leinster House, he is also involved in the high-profile buses to Northern Ireland, which bring people from Cork and Kerry to Belfast for cataract operations. So we will be talking about that and plenty more issues with him later on.
Okay, but first of all, let's take a quick look at this week's paper. On page one, our lead story is about issues with rural broadband, a subject, of course, that's no stranger to our front pages.
Absolutely, yeah, Con. I think we had it 2 weeks ago as well about a story that went national, really, about the people who had to go to the church car park in Gagan to get any kind of internet connection. People working from home, were working from home in inverted commas because they had to leave home to get a connection. But kind of carrying on from that theme again now this week, a few auctioneers had come out and said that there was great interest in West Cork from people who had wanted to move, either people native to West Cork who were working in Dublin or Cork and wanted to move home, or people who just wanted to move here for, I suppose, better quality of life and had discovered with the whole working from home thing during the pandemic that their lifestyle had changed and they had more time with family and, you know, it was a better setup for them and they wanted to maybe do it full time. But of course, the big elephant in the room is broadband, because there's no point moving somewhere if you don't have a good connection. And it just so happened that this week we were also contacted by Hugh Rance, who's a music teacher with Cork ETB. And he had actually done a survey during lockdown about this. And he had discovered that 20% of the families he'd surveyed, who were mostly in West Cork, because that's where he's based, did not meet EU targets for broadband. So he was trying to teach the likes of piano and flute, and he found that screens were freezing. People were losing connection altogether, and you can imagine how frustrating that must be for a teacher to be trying to interact with their students and the connection is breaking down, or especially with music, if the screen is freezing, it's just impossible. So all this talk about blended learning and maybe when, you know, the college is open, that a certain amount of lectures can be online. I mean, it really is a bit of a farce considering how poor the broadband is here.
That's right, because I think I saw something on the news last night about UL will only have the people in 1 week and 3, I think, or 1 week and 4 maybe, for the next semester. They'll only be physically in the college for about a quarter of the time. So, I mean, they'll be depending on good broadband wherever they are, especially if they're at home.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's just it's a good little story for this week. It's very topical. It's written by Emma Connolly and Martha Brennan. And also then on page 2, Emma has looked at some case studies of some of those students we spoke about. And they've actually spoken about exactly the problems that they have encountered. And so that's a very topical story for this week, I think.
Yeah, and there's also an interesting story on page 1 about a row in Fianna Fáil locally over a tweet. Christopher O'Sullivan, the new TD for Cork Southwest, he issued a tweet that said, "Now more than ever, Fianna Fáil needs unity and focus. There's so much work to do. There's not time to sit around feeling sorry for ourselves and being peed off about being overlooked for certain positions. So let's get the job done," it said. But Margaret Murphy O'Mahony, the former TD for Fianna Fáil in Cork Southwest, gave a rather curt response, to say the least, as she said that is there not a more private forum to convey this message to your colleagues? Now, Christopher O'Sullivan defended his tweet and said, "Margaret is perfectly entitled to her view," he said, "and here's the rub, and so am I, an elected TD." Now, former TD Margaret did not return the Southern Star's calls this week, seeking her side of the story. And another story, by the way, on page 1 as well, is about Saoirse Ronan, the actress, being on holidays here in West Cork yet again. She seems to be very fond of of the area, and the food it provides as well too. And she has been seen at a number of restaurants around West Cork, and in fairness now, she is happy to pose for any people who ask for selfies with her and so on like that. But I suppose like a lot of other celebrities who come to the area, she's probably happy to do so, because they generally tend not to be annoyed by people, and that's probably why they like the area. So long may that continue.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Jackie Keogh tried to talk to some of the people who'd met her, and they were remaining very tight-lipped, just to say they had met her, and that was it. And
Yeah.
they even made the point in the fish kitchen, that's why she's coming here, because we don't
Yes,
talk about her.
exactly.
So yeah, so it's good anyway to have her back. So
Yeah.
well done, Saoirse. So on page 3, Con, there's a story there about the Wild Atlantic Way yet again, another story about the Seven Heads area and the Wild Atlantic Way signs.
That's right. Barry Holland, who's chairman of the Seven Heads Peninsula Tourism, is unhappy, and understandably so, that the Wild Atlantic Way maps, both online and physically, do not still include Cork-Sherry and the Seven Heads Peninsula as a spur off the Wild Atlantic Way, as they were promised 3 years ago almost. I think it was September 2017. They were told they were going to be added to it. No, he said it took almost 2 years to get the stickers, the WAW stickers, put on the signs locally. And there was also supposed to be a discovery point put up in the area as well, I think in Cork-Sherry. That was agreed to by Board Fault Ireland, but that hasn't happened yet either. And it's hard to understand maybe about the physical maps. Maybe they might have a big lot of stock in or something like that over the years. But I mean, there's probably no reason why they shouldn't be on the online maps at this stage. It should be easy enough to do that, But it's still ongoing. But the Fault Ireland people have said, all right, that the spur will be put on the Wild Atlantic map this summer once they're finished their reviews of it, but probably too late for this tourist season. So
It is
hopefully,
really, I mean, at this stage in July now, I think the summer is nearly half over at this stage, so that's
yeah,
not going to be too welcome, I don't think, in Corkmac at this stage. There was
definitely not.
another story that really kind of broke my heart. Now, I know we've covered it about 3 weeks ago. We did a story about dogs going missing in West Cork, and I know it's actually national news this week. There's been a trend right across the country because the price of dogs apparently has shot up in the pandemic, because
Yeah,
families at home are bringing in dogs, and I'd imagine maybe even to keep some kids occupied. Parents think it's a great idea, but of course when the parents go back to work, it's going to be another problem. But in the meantime, dogs are being stolen right, left and centre. And we had the story a few weeks ago about that dog. I think it was Cooper, had been stolen, a family pet. And anyone who has a dog, and we've had a lovely dog here, just the thoughts of your dog being stolen, not knowing what's happened, is just appalling. So there's another update on that again this week, with a pub that was taken from Skibbereen was found in Cork City two days later, and then there was another dog found in County Clare. So I mean, they're going far and wide, but it's a
seemingly.
really upsetting story. And I think the piece of advice there is keep an eye on your dog at all times, especially if it's a young dog, a dog that's able to breed.
Yeah.
They're going to be in high demand, so don't take your eyes off them for a second.
Yes.
The story there about the pub inspections at the weekend is another interesting.
That's right. There was a lot of pub inspections took place. Over 200 of them around the West Cork division at the weekend in Operation Navigation. Now, according to the Chief Superintendent for the West Cork division, Con Cadigan, there were no detections, and he said the majority of people are acting responsibly, bar a few complaints, he said, about social distancing. However, though, they had a call out to Deer Park Estate in Bandon over the weekend, where youths from outside the area turned up and invited to a private house party. But I think they made a number of calls there, and I think the matter was resolved satisfactorily. But one footnote to that story is about a disqualified driver that was caught by guards in Bandon last Sunday. He was 11 times over the drink driving limit. Wow. Yeah.
Just imagine you'd have had to have an awful lot of €9 meals to get 11 times over the drink driving limit.
That's true. That's true.
Pretty frightening one, all right.
Yeah.
Also, a story not a million miles from that caught my eye is the one about the Snug pub. The two lads in Macroom who've hit on this brilliant idea of creating a pub out of a kind of a mini garden shed, I suppose, really in your backyard. What did you think of that, Con?
Yeah, sure, why not? In the absence of the real thing, I suppose. It was something that Macroom and Donald Mulcahy, who was actually an insurance broker by day, and carpenter Billy Murphy came up with during the lockdown. And now they're building 3 or 4 backyard pubs. They measure 8 feet by 5 feet. For people daily all over the country, and half of the orders are coming from Dublin. And they can also supply all the paraphernalia as well, from bar stools to fridges and speakers. And as Donald told our reporter, Martha Brennan, it all goes to show that you can't beat an Irish person's thirst.
Absolutely not. No, I think they're very cute, and you can imagine how you'd like to maybe add all your own little bits and pieces to the pub, your own little lovely paintings of flowers, maybe
Yes.
like
Yes.
yourself, myself, PCH, and your comfy sofas and all the rest. So I think that's a great idea. And then in Kinsale now they're after bringing in a new measure there for social distancing, only on Sundays, interestingly enough.
Yeah, they're closing some of the streets on Sundays. Now, it started last Sunday. The idea of closing the streets, of course, was to make more room for people to walk around, but also to facilitate dining al fresco. But last weekend's weather wasn't too conducive to al fresco dining, but that said, the forecast is good for this weekend. Now, it worked out well enough, but there were complaints about some of the road closed signage, which gave many people the impression that the streets were closed to pedestrians as well as traffic. So it was, of course, their first trial of more pedestrianised streets, and local business people gave it the benefit of the doubt, saying, of course, that it was a work in progress. But I suppose the bottom line is that, I suppose, to get that truly continental vibe, you need to have warm weather.
You do, and they've also suggested, putting in some planters and a few other little features to make it a little bit more attractive. And in fairness to them, they're just using vulgar, road closed signs basically, which probably doesn't fit in with the image of Kinsale. You can imagine why some people there might find them a bit
Yeah,
crude, to say the least.
yeah.
And our property page has become really popular, we've noticed in recent weeks, and people just, maybe it's the lockdown or the pandemic, people are kind of doing a bit of fantasy buying. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's a huge hit on Facebook. There's an absolutely gorgeous one this week in Clonakilty for just, well, I say just, maybe I'm thinking of Dublin figures, but 255,000 for what's really a little architectural gem, really, isn't it?
yeah, it seems to be. Yeah, it's a very narrow house. It's only 10 feet wide, but it's not short on anything. It's a very deep house, all right, to make up for the lack of width. But it really is a fascinating one, and it would be very difficult here for us to do it justice. So get a copy of the Southern Star and look at the property page of some of the pictures. You'll be very, very impressed by it.
Absolutely gorgeous. And between that and the snug pub you could stick in the backyard, sure. What else would you need?
That's true. That's true. Yes, exactly.
Uh,
And
Anything
we
else?
have a few more bits and pieces that caught my eye there. We have Arkon again. He's on about Fianna Fáil this time. He has a go at Fianna Fáilers who lost out on ministerial appointments for rounding on our new Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, and ungratefully biting the hand that feeds him, as he says. Now, he had a particular go at Cork Northwest TD Michael Moynihan, who was the former Fianna Fáil chief whip. He was overlooked for a higher office after then he warned that he would be a thorn in the side of the government as a result of his constituency and other rural areas being overlooked by the government. And another one, just a final one there on the business pages, we have the story of two friends, Luke O'Leary from Kilcoe outside Skibbereen and his housemate Kane Toomey, who found themselves out of work due to the pandemic. But they reinvented themselves by setting up their own cleaning company called In and Out Cleaning. Gradually, they have built up a client base of local business premises around West Skibbereen, and they're now branching out across West Cork. And Luke realised that it has the potential to become a business, so he's quit his day job, and now he and Kane are giving it their all. So it's a good story to see.
A clean sweep indeed by the two
Clean
lads.
sweep, exactly. Well done to them.
And also not to forget, Emma is still ranting about life in lockdown or post-lockdown. And
Yes,
I'm very popular on page 20 this week, I think.
That's right. She feels that she's lost out this year because all the barbecues were sold out during the pandemic for this summer. So she's a wide range of topics covered this week. She's aghast at the thought of Kanye West thinking of going for the American presidency. I
Aren't we
wouldn't
all?
blame her for that. God, it could have been much worse than the president incumbent, we would wonder. And there's a trip to Fota Wildlife Park on the cards for her as well. She says that's as wild as it's going to get for her this summer, probably. Her 4-year-old, of course, is getting excited about seeing an actual koala bear for the first time in person, but the only trouble is that they don't have any of them in Fota, so that'll be something for her to sort out afterwards.
Another argument.
Yes.
Great. Okay, thanks, Con. And don't forget, if you can't get to the shops, you can subscribe online by going to thesouthernstarTV and clicking on the e-paper tab, or call the office on 028 212 00 for a postal copy to be sent out to you. This week's interview is with Cork Southwest TD Michael Collins. Michael was elected in 2016 when he defied both the Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil number crunchers by taking an impressive 6,765 first preference votes and the second seat in Cork Southwest, with a final tally of over 11,000 votes. He performed even better in last February's general election when he topped the poll, comfortably exceeding the quota, and was deemed elected on the first count with almost 12,000 first preferences. I spoke to him about the recent government formation, what he sees as his top priorities for West Cork, working through the pandemic, and more. Now, Michael, this is your second term in Dáil Éireann, but it's been a very different one from the first one, because not soon after the new Dáil got together, we had, of course, restrictions. So I see you a lot on the Oireachtas report, so I know that you're very active. And how have you found it in Leinster House?
It's obviously well different to the first 4 years, and it's both difficult on the ground and it's both difficult in the Dáil. On the ground, I suppose, back with the constituency, and the most important place I should be is with the people. People need to meet you. I had to do the clinics there for quite some time because of the. I'd always have active clinics. I wasn't able to carry out any of the clinics because the bars were closed and people had to keep the social distance. I've started the clinics, as you can see, in the Southern Star last week and this week. The clinics are reopened again in a very full manner because I can only use the facilities that are available to me, and that's the clinics in the Skibbereen, in the Bandon, and in Bantry, and my own home place in Lorton. So it's people are availing that opportunity. Today, I had 11 people in Skibbereen, in Bandon. I had quite a lot in Skibbereen in the morning, but 11 in Bandon, which is a lot. What we're trying to do is make sure that people stay in the car, and we ring them and bring them in one by one and make sure that they're sanitized and everything is there before them. In relation to the Dáil, I suppose, look, we're trying to, it's quite messy, to be honest with you, and I'm kind of a bit confused by that, because last Tuesday we had a Dáil sitting, and a full Dáil sitting, and I raised numbers of questions there on Tuesday, as I usually do. And then we couldn't have a Dáil sitting in the Dáil on Wednesday. We had to go to the convention centre, and we did go to the convention centre on Thursday, which I was there both days. And it's very disruptive because you can't do your business. You don't have your office set up or anything there, and you can't be going to and fro to the Dáil because the distance is too far. And it's costing the state 25,000 a day. Now, apparently, the day of the Taoiseach being elected was 50,000, which is an outrageous amount of money. But I could accept that the day he was being elected, that there had to be a full sitting, and I respect that maybe to some degree. But it's a hell of a lot of money.
Mike, could you just explain that when you say it's costing? Is that the hiring of the convention centre, or is that expensive? What is it?
Hiring of the convention, 25,000 now each term. Because they're insisting if as many TDs want to attend as they're indicating, they need a building big enough to accommodate them. I think it could be managed much better because I'm in a group of 6. And it's obvious to me if I can't be in the Dáil for 2 hours or 4 hours, that's accepted. And I stay in my office or I stay outside or whatever, but most likely it's your office at work. But for some reason, I was looking around yesterday and I couldn't see 50 TDs inside in the convention centre. So I was just wondering, why are we paying 25,000 when it could be managed in the Dáil? Now, I've also gone on this committee at a very early stage, the Oireachtas committee, the Oireachtas COVID committee. Which means I'm doing a lot of speaking time, which means I was travelling up and down to Dublin 3 days a week, which was it was over 2,500 kilometres a week of travelling. I didn't want to stay there. Well, it was impossible to find accommodation. The latter end of it has become more possible, but as accommodation is. And I did stay up this week, but before that I was travelling up and down for safety reasons, which was quite difficult, because travelling up and down it takes a lot out of you just driving up and down. But it was important, and I found it, and I was lucky enough to get a committee, because it has given me an opportunity to raise issues, in relation to testing, COVID testing. I have quite a lot of questions, and nobody's able to give me clarity, from the Taoiseach to the Minister for Health, all the way down. And I've also raised as to, is Bantry Hospital going to be there for the people of Cork West? Because we're slightly out of COVID, but we are not fully out of it, and it could re-emerge again, and we do need a hospital like we've had of excellence. And this COVID committee, I noticed there, we say 2 weeks ago I raised a question on education in relation to students who wouldn't be getting results under the predictive grade because they were strong enough, we'd say, in a foreign language, and they needed that to get into to get into medicine. And I couldn't get that answer. And I raised that question at the COVID meeting to the Department of Education, and they said they'd come back to me. And the following week, there was another meeting with the Department of Education, and I called the night before. I got an answer to that question. So it has them on their toes. They're I think, just worry, and we're getting answers. Sometimes it's difficult to get answers out there, but look, you try every mechanism you can to get, I think, the point across of the issues that concerns me in West Cork and my constituents, and 19 is maintaining far more than most. But look, I'm on that committee, and that's what I choose to be in.
And tell me this, how did you feel about the final government formation? Now, for a little while, we thought the independents might have been in the mix, but you didn't make it in the end, and it's been the Greens who chosen. So how did you feel about all that?
I always felt that we were not going to be on in the race in this one. And somebody met me the other day, and they said to me, "You told us exactly the way it was going to turn out at the beginning." And I said, "Did I?" Well, because a lot of people were saying to me, "How do you think this is going to run?" I said, "There really is only 3 options as such." And that was the option. Sorry, there's only going to be one option with three parties, and that's what happened. And you might get a few sprinkles of independence thrown in, and there is a deal, some sort of a messy deal done with some of the independents, but some of them independents that voted for the government are kind of former Fine Gael, have links with Fine Gael, I don't want to name. I think people look at the record of who voted for them that day, and they'll know full well who I'm talking. And look, the fact that I did get a call. Look, what was happening was saying yes, they want us. We said our door is always open. We did have issues of concern in rural Ireland that needed addressing, but our door stayed open. Some parties shut the door solid. We weren't a group that did. We did do that. We decided we would speak to them, and I think it's a good way, because you're point across around the table, and you can say back and say, "I won't participate," and it looks like I'm a politician that won't participate, but actually I would. But it has to be on the basis that certain things have to be delivered. And it's
were you asking too much, and were the Greens asking a little less? Is maybe that's what had you out of the mix?
No, out of the. I'm not looking at anything personal. So until it's a liner. There was 4 people at a meeting here in Bantry. The doctors attended the meeting, and they told us the dangers and where Bantry Hospital is steering towards, and what the intentions of the HSE were. And they asked me, "Would you make a promise?" And I was one of several politicians. "Would you go into government without a promise?" And I made a promise I wouldn't. And the promise I wanted was that it would be in the programme for government. It obviously couldn't be delivered straight away, and I respect that. I'm not a fool. I'm not enough in politics to know you cannot expect something at the flick of a finger. But if it was in the programme for government that they intend to do this in Bantry House, last year we're asking what an anaesthesiast is the most important thing. At least I knew then that they were listening. And I'll just go back before I go ahead a bit. We were asked to meet with Fianna Fáil initially. Fianna Gael decided they didn't want to meet with us for whatever reason that was theirs.
Sorry, Michael, when you say us now, just clarify.
Oh, sorry, the Rural Independent Group. Sorry, my
Okay,
group of
yeah.
6.
Your line broke up slightly there at the start, so that might be why I missed
There's
that. Yeah, the Rural Independent.
Matty McGrath, the Rural Independent Group. Matty McGrath, Michael Healy-Ray, Danny Healy-Ray, Richard Donoghue, Carol Nolan, myself. I think that's our group. And they asked to meet with us. Sinn Féin asked initially, put especially fishing is a huge issue. There was no eye on the ball for the last number of years in relation to fishing. I was working very hard for a standalone Minister for Fisheries, but it wasn't a red line issue, but it was an important issue to raise. And we got, then they asked us to come back around the table the next time. Sinn Féin kind of went off the pitch, and I don't know, they went on holidays. But Mary Lou never wants to meet with us. There's always somebody down along the line. So whether we're good enough for Mary Lou or not, I don't know that. I've yet to find that out. But yeah, in fairness, Fine Gael then met with us with Fianna Fáil, and they said they would come back to us. But we said we'd want to see the programme for government, obviously, before you make any commitment to anybody. And they didn't come back. And there was a lot to and fro. They meant to come back, and it didn't happen. But it didn't actually happen. So look, that's fine. Greens, I think, kind of dictated as such, saying they didn't really want independence on board. That's the impression I was getting for some of the statements you'd see being made out. Then they indicated then they wanted to speak to us. We met with Micheál Martin, met with Eamon Ryan and Leo Varadkar. And there's the opportunity to speak. That was why the door stays open. And I asked them before he finalised the programme for government, Bantry General, my red letter. If that's not on it, I'm off the pitch. It's as simple as that. And
what exactly are you looking for, Michael? Because we have had statements from, even most recently, from Simon Harris just before he stepped down or gave way to his predecessor or his successor, that the future is secure. So why will you not take that at face value? Why are you so suspicious that there is
I take nothing at face value, and no disrespect to the man that's gone from his position. I was the man who called for the vote of no confidence on the same individual because of cataract situations, knees, hips, and the debacle above the Children's Hospital that cost the state astronomical money beyond belief. So my confidence in that same minister in that position was eroded and gone as far as I'm concerned. He promised, the minister promised an endoscopy unit in 2018. Nothing has happened. But the bottom line in relation to Bantry General Hospital is the need for an anaesthesiist. And if that position is not filled by a full-time, fully qualified anaesthesiist, that hospital is in dire trouble. And the HSE have sent experts down to the doctors to sell them, what is the old word long ago, a poke in a bag, I know what they call it now. That's what they do.
Pig in a poke.
And I mean, a pig in a poke, fair play to you. And they tried to sell a pig in a poke. And the pig in a poke was a little pack. They get a super pack inside in the back of the car and nobody'd have to pay for it. Only the state would pay for it. But we'd take away the anesthesiast and you don't have nothing more to worry about. So if somebody collapses above an Adrigole or someone out in Goleen or down in Dunmanway or whatever, you go with your magic pack and you stay there until the ambulance arrives, and the ambulance whisks you up to Cork, and that's deemed the Bantry General Hospital, and it turns into be a hospital for the elderly eventually, and that's a beautiful hospital.
But then why such recent investment then? I mean, there was a CT scanner there at the end of last year. I think 700,000 was put in.
Yeah, they don't mind spending money. There's no problem in throwing money at something and decide it's a bad decision afterwards. We've seen that down through the years. But the bottom line is this was promised to the doctors, and the doctors came out, decided, they told the HSE, get up the road, get out of here. You can't, we're not going to do this. Then the HSE met me, asked me as a public representative to sell this product, and the next product they had was they were going to put 7 specialised, paramedics in Dunmanway, residing in Dunmanway, and basically the same story. Somebody drops in Skibbereen or Baltimore or Unihall, doesn't matter, above and out in the Mizen, the paramedic will come and the ambulance will take you up to. So there's something happening behind the scenes that the people aren't being told about. Minister will tell you, oh my God, everything's perfect, Bantry's beautiful, and we love it, and it's so good for the people. We all know all that. But why isn't there a full-time anaesthesiast being appointed to the hospital? Why isn't there an advertisement for the position? And why are they bluffing the people? By sending people down to try and sell this other product around out and in the back door, they're trying to close Bantry Hospital, who were all too wise to the real facts. And I'll keep at this until I get it. And the funny thing was, Siobhan, in the programme for government, if you have a chance to read it, there's quite a large document. I haven't read it all, being honest with you, but I did look at the health side of it, and there was hospitals mentioned inside it. So basically, someone around the table for Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and the Green Party sold their own hospital.
Yes, but if you got an anaesthetist, like, would that be the end of the matter then, Michael? Because maybe you'll get fobbed off with that.
I would be quite happy if they want to fob me off with that. That would be a massive start and a great success for Bantry General Hospital, because I could guarantee the future. I know what's happening here. We don't have a full time, and some experts have said to me in the HSE, not a fully qualified one in Bantry at the present time. And what's happening is, they'll play down the clock. This gentleman is retiring. They'll play down the clock, and they're going to come back to us and say, well, we advertise, but sorry, we don't have enough time now. We don't have anybody there. Instead of the advertisements being there, and put all the supports that needs to be put to get that gentleman or gentle lady over this in across the line and out to Bantry. There's a fabulous place to sell here. West Cork is practically COVID-free to a point. And we have a beautiful living. A package has to be put together. And they have no intention of putting that together because they have other plans. And until I find out that gentleman, or as I say, that lady is appointed, Bantry Hospital stays as a red liner for me. And that was my red liner. And when I opened the programme for government, they were meant to come back to us. They didn't come back. And when I opened the programme, look, Micheál Martin did ring me on the Friday before the election. And look, he's a good, and I said that in my speech, and I wished him well, and he's a Cork man, and he's a good parliamentarian, and I won't take that away from him. But I told him I wouldn't be supporting. And I said, there's a lot of issues in the programme for government I'm not happy with. Fishing, there was no the fishing issues. A super junior would have been super. I felt it in stronger on tourism. That was a failure. And Bantry General Hospital, well, other hospitals got named as they were going to do this, and for other hospitals up the country, Waterford, Sligo, our hospital. So obviously, we had no voice at the table. Believe it or not, I was involved in the previous programme for government, and we got quite a lot in there. Looked for a lot more. I always look for more to get, but it didn't happen here. And now looking at what has come out, we didn't get a standalone tourism minister. The fishing and agriculture, fishing has gone in under the mat again. And unfortunately, I see the separation of Gaeltacht and the islands. I don't think that's a good move. It's two ministries. A lot of changes that are negative enough, and more than any other change that I think is shocking is the fact that rural affairs has gone under social protection. Rural affairs was a standalone, and rural and communities are now wiped under the carpet like fishing. It's just basically like a TD told me the other day. The minister will come in, she'll talk 20 minutes on social protection, and rural affairs, she'll give 18 minutes on social protection, because everything is on social protection at the moment with COVID payments, and you get 2 minutes in rural affairs. It's gone. So that's my reflection on the programme for government. Was a bad deal for the people of rural Ireland.
Okay, now I was going to ask you about your top 3 priorities for West Cork. I suspect Bantry Hospital is one of them. Possibly the fishing was the second one, was it?
Yeah, well, fishing was very much, I'm not a fisherman, I'm a farmer actually, besides politics. And obviously farming should be a huge issue as far as I'm concerned, and it was, and I fought very strongly for farming. We saw the protests outside the factories last year, and people weren't there just for fun. They were there because they were suffering in the pocket. But issues, the people are out in the water that have been suffering for many years, and they had no voice. And I couldn't believe coastal TDs inside the Dáil, and no one was mentioning fishing. What's wrong? And I was meeting the fishing groups down here, and I said, sometimes a voice. Like it's great for everybody to want to be in politics and want to be in power, but somebody needs to be in opposition to fight for somebody, and somebody needs to be a voice across the floor. And that's what I became in the 4 years. And I obviously fought my corner for farming because I know it much better, but I learned about the fishing industry, and I learned where the issues of concern were, and I felt that the only way they could be addressed is either a minister, or even I said around the table with Eamon Ryan and Micheál and Leo that day was a super junior. If you can't do that for the fishermen. And the impression I got was they were very concerned and they were interested. But I noticed when it came out, there wasn't even a specific junior minister as such. Tis under agriculture as well. So fishing became a big issue, and it is a big issue for me going forward. I think broadband, I think, you know, I've seen your coverage in the Southern Star in relation to broadband quite a lot lately. I know you didn't comment me at all, and I was working on one of them quite vigorously to get it started in Gaggin, and it looks like it could have fallen through with a private operator. A lot of work done behind the scenes on that, and a bit disappointed as they need a bit of goodwill sometimes to get these things across the line from landowners and stuff, and it doesn't happen. But broadband hasn't happened, and it was one of my first questions with Micheál Martin last week. I asked him basically, is it going to happen? I think I need to go after it this week coming again, because he's answered me as wishy-washy. And broadband, always the answer is, yeah, we will get it sorted. We will get it sorted. Broadband can be sorted quite simply. And I said that around the table when I met him. I said quite a lot when I got the chance to meet him. If you can sort it by fibre optic, you have to look at wireless. And the private wireless operator can deliver, and can talk to the people at Cumhola and places like that got resolved by the wireless operator. And you know, I'm not promoting any one company, but I don't care who delivers it, as someone delivers it. The other thing, Siobhan, Comreg have never been pulled by the government. So what do you mean? Comreg, the mobile phone companies and the broadband companies went to Comreg because they're the governing body as such. To look for extra capacity, because people went home and worked in rural Ireland, from Cork City, from Dublin, wherever, and they came back out to West Cork in particular, and we can only talk about West Cork. And they asked for the extra capacity, and the minister at that time, Minister Bruton, just going back at the beginning of COVID, gave the extra capacity. No, not one area that I know in West Cork that needed extra capacity got it. So I'm asking the question now to the Taoiseach, who got it? Why didn't Cork say, okay, we get you this extra capacity, but we want to know exactly where it goes? I have a funny feeling it's going to Kildare or some places like that. And rural West Cork never got it. Why didn't Gaggin get it? Because they were definitely high on the list. Because I was talking to Tree Mobile, to Vodafone, to different companies about Gaggin's situation, and they were telling me, we need extra capacity. We need it. And they get the extra capacity, and Gaggin gets overlooked. And I'm just picking Gaggin. I can go down to Kilmac-Simon, I can go west, I can go east, I can go north.
Where are you at this moment, Michael? Because your link is very unstable.
At the moment, I'm back in Skull. So
you know, and that's a fairly well-serviced town with a lot of tourists this time of year. And you'd imagine the phone coverage should at least be reliable.
It should, and unfortunately, even we're lucky enough out here in Skull to have some kind of a service. But one of my thoughts are is that they have to go down the road of the wireless operator. It's the most speedily way to get this resolved for now, and let the other thing go on this national. There's all these millions or billions, I don't know, is it trillions, I don't know, these monopoly kind of types of money, where they should have also gone, and I spent 4 years trying to ask them, could they go back to Europe and community voluntary organisations do the dig and bring the cable to their area? All that should have been explored, because it is in other European countries, but they didn't want to do that. It seemingly is, we'll make it sound good, we're going to give billions out there for broadband, but it never gets delivered. And another issue going forward is the roads in West Cork. I have to, people want to say, are you preaching on a negative? There's so many positives in West Cork. I said in an interview recently, you would really want to bottle the area and sell it out. And I've heard that auctioneers are inundated with house sales in the peninsulas, in where people have seen the catastrophe all over the world, and they want to leave where they are and they want to come somewhere. And we have beauty down here. Our roads are in shocking condition down here. That's a big issue. There's bypasses in Inishannon, bypasses in Bandon, all promised, not delivered. Also tourism. The tourism sector is at its knees because of COVID. No fault of any. I don't want to go pointing the finger at governments, because governments did well in previous years. I didn't like the idea of going from 9 to 13.5%. I raised that in the Dáil with Minister Varadkar yesterday. He said that I have amnesia. I think of some sort of selective amnesia, he said, because that was it was at a higher percentage before, and they lowered it to boost things that they have. But look, the bottom line is tourism was going well. It's not at all going well now because of exceptional circumstances. But we need a lowering of the VAT from 13.5 to, they're saying they can't do 0, so 5%. I think Britain has come to that. I've been calling it for the last month. Also, the pub business is in dire trouble. It's drinking, that needs a massive reduction. Given a chance to survive. There's a lot of publicans, and I met them today. and they're coming to me and they're saying to me, Michael, I don't think I'll reopen. I don't know what to do. And honestly, I don't really know what to do for them, because some of them, and the cafes and the restaurants, they have more staff and less customers, and you can't survive. And they were struggling already. So like, I met business people that told me prior, just at the beginning of COVID, never realizing, they said we were depending on a great year this year to get us across the line, and that year is gone. And the grants they're getting, every grant is, but 2,000 is the most, and 2.5 to 3 is the most they're getting now. That's, some people say that isn't that great. It's not great when you have more workers, more PPE, more conditions, less tables. It's very serious. So they're the areas I'm going to focus on is tourism. And as I say, I was angry. I was not angry, but I was annoyed that we didn't get a standalone minister for tourism. I think it would have been a vital ministry, but I don't know. I know you'd say, I know the Taoiseach said to me one day, he said, how many ministers do you want? But there's certainly some ministries among there that could even, I know there's certainly, but there is super juniors. They seem to be able, they're like confetti the way they're handing them out, but they're all nice little numbers for parties being kept happy. And I'm saying, wait a minute, no, that could actually be squeezed into the other one. And why did you throw away rural affairs, like rural Ireland? Why did you sweep that under the carpet? Why did you sweep fishing under the carpet? It seems to me...
Well, maybe because the independents weren't at the table, Michael. I think that's probably why.
Well, we weren't allowed around the table, so... You know, commenting TDs were saying they wanted the Green Party. Then they got the Green Party, and some don't want them. And so look, you know, no, they're in what they're in. But we did need a government. I respect that. And I didn't like the fact, and I didn't like the previous time that it took was it 70 or 80 days the previous time, 100 and something this time. That's not good enough. That's not good enough, because it looks to me they spend the first month and they're in shell shock. And then they spend the next month thinking about the shell shock. And then they decide we'll do something about this. And that's not good.
They had, in fairness, they had a good excuse this time. Now, I suppose their excuse anyways that the pandemic took priority, and that you can't. It's very hard to argue with that on this occasion. Maybe not the last. They had no excuse. But can I just ask you about the one other subject that's very close to your heart, which is the Belfast or blind buses? I think you dubbed it one day.
Yeah, Belfast or blind.
What is the story now with COVID and that? Are they still operating? Will they operate again?
Yeah, it's still operating, but we haven't ran a bus obviously during the COVID pandemic because of the bus operators, because of the hospitals. So what we've done is I'm trying to find a mechanism that we can. I think we've overcome the bus operator, as I have a list a mile long, including in one of the clinics we had three people for different issues, and I wanted to deliver for them, because they the biggest issue for them is some are elderly and they don't know how to get to Belfast, and they know to get there, but they're not able to drive up or whatever. But the problem I'm having at the moment is they require a test to enter the hospital, and the problem with the state at the moment, they don't realise, and I've tried to convince the powers that be, that can a doctor do a test? If not a doctor, specialised person swab, I can easily get a result. The laboratory in Bandon will give us a result within 4 to 5 hours. And they're refusing to do that. So refers for the swab, so we can get a clear test or not. But if it's a clear test, they can go to Belfast within 2 days and get that. So that's what I'm working on. This whole COVID thing, was handled very well in ways. I don't like that they won't look into same-day testing in airports and ports because of it'll open up Ireland in a safer manner. Nothing was safe in this, but at least it opened up in a safer manner. And we have in Ireland, we bought a PC-12 plane. They flew to Germany. I told our casting, bar the swab side of it, they could for 49 quid less. And in this situation, it's disrupted our people from going to Belfast, and I have a list a mile long. I'd hope to resolve that in the next week, and in discussions with different the laboratories, discussion with some hospitals to try and see what the hospital do. But it should be done in a more fair manner. The point I'm trying to make too, Siobhan, is tomorrow you have to go to a certain country. They're insisting that you're COVID tested before you leave. So it doesn't mean you have COVID, but they're insisting you'll be COVID tested and you get a result. And people are ringing me and asking me, can they get that done? And back door should be the way. They should be, the same could refer somebody to Dunmanway to get a test done, but it's not. It has to go through the medical side of it, or some professional has to do it. And that's very wrong, because people are coming to me, just they're not, thank God they don't have COVID, they're 99%, they certainly don't, but they have to be tested and they have to prove it. I can't get that across the line at this time. And it's a terrible injustice to people that are flying, trying to get back to work. Our people need operations abroad. We get it started, but it's taking a lot longer than I thought. And as I said, the list is a mile long and is ready to roll again.
Okay. So now, just to change tack slightly, you got some criticism in the past for some comments you made about immigrants, saying that our people should come first. I think this was really at the height of the homeless crisis now, about a year ago maybe. So I know you've made some comments since about direct provision, and you know that there are houses available now. We should be moving people out of hotels. So I mean, where do you stand on all that now, Michael? What should be our priorities?
I think that, first of all, yeah, I'll deal with the first one first, about the comments about immigrants saying our people should come first, and I explained that in more detail, and maybe it wasn't or was picked up. I felt that, you know, we could be all, like we say with direct provision, the government and the state were trying to tick a box. That's my personal view. They were bringing these people in. There was no one seeing the end product. They were shoved into a room in a hotel. That's no way to treat people. That was an absolute disgraceful way to treat people. And I always say that, and it's proven now because of COVID and the outbreak in Carsiveen and blah, 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 wherever. And I always said that they should be, if people are brought into our country, leave them. We have to look at rural resettlement, where families could move into a rural community, not 30 or 40 families, because that's not going to work. It's not going to work for them. It's not going to work for the community. 2 or 3 families are fine, because we have the facilities in rural Ireland. I'm saying it forever. But my idea was, where are we going here? We can't resolve the man and the woman on the street, and that was the situation at the time in the summer and the winter. Sorry, they were dying. But we want to bring more in from another world. Don't they tell me they're in worse off condition? I respect that in some countries there, more than not. But you know, I just felt that we need to be careful here where we're going. We need to get the people off the street first, and regardless if they're Irish or not, because some of them are not. They're non-nationals on the streets as well, and
But
we need to look after them.
Michael, haven't we room for everybody if it's just done properly?
But Siobhan, we haven't, and that's the sad thing. It hasn't been done properly. And it's shocking what we've done. And as late as last week, I've been approached, and it's outside of my constituency, and no gain to get on this, about a development up the country. And I'm tempted not to, I better not name it at the moment, but I'd say it will be very soon. They'll do it anyhow. And they have approached the state to house people in direct provision. Fabulous apartments, suited perfect, along the line that this government are so-called dreaming. And I mentioned it, I think, twice in the Dáil this week. If you listen to have a chance to listen to my speeches in someplace, and nobody wants to get back to the developer here. Obviously, he has to make money, but I don't mind. This is what they're saying, to take people out of hotels that are in direct provision and give them a comfortable and honest living and in a safe environment. And they're refusing to do that. They'll continue to bluff us in the Dáil, on national airways, and they're leaving them inside, crowded inside in bedrooms.
And what do you think is the agenda there? Is it money? First of all, I said it last year when all this controversy arose, that was not on my making. Another TD said something, and of course he wouldn't speak anymore. So it got thrown over to my lap, and I said what I needed to say. And just felt that I think the government are on a box-ticking exercise, and the box-ticking was, we're bringing in so many thousand, we've done our job. But nobody realised you're bringing that many, for how many years, and what have you done? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I see now this development, this is going on now, and I'm honing in very closely on this now, because I can see a trend here, that these people the same were telling me that I was being racist when I was saying that these people need to be treated properly or not brought here. Why you want to bring somebody here to let him die? So I'm saying, wait a minute, they were offering me suitable accommodation for the last 12 months in one area that would have housed quite a lot of people, and you refused to even look at it, or refused to deal with it, or come back to the individual. So now you're telling me that I was right. I think that actually you look at the people that were calling me what they were calling me, and in the political circle, and they have questions to ask, and I don't. You're sure you have to live with politics, and people say what they want to say, and I have to live with that. I spoke yesterday, if people have a chance to look at my Facebook, about the condition of people in Yemen. And I gave
you know, a lot of time talking about it and very detailed. And actually, to be honest, I tried to come in, I won't name the person, it was a 14-year-old girl, gave me that speech. It was a fabulous speech about, you know, the conditions and the amount the people are dying, and children are boiling leaves in pots and eating boiled leaves. That's a shocking way, and that the state, our state, should come there and help people. So, you know, I think, you know, looking after our own first, we need to look after our own. But certainly those people that coming in that are living in appalling conditions out across the world, they have to be looked after when they come in here. And if they can't look after the people, you can't tell people and put out statements that we have so many thousand baht into this country and then put them into positions living in accommodations that's substandard and worse than maybe the conditions they came in themselves. And some of them are dying because of that COVID and whatever.
Okay. Michael, you've also been very closely aligned now with the Healy Rays. You know, they're in the same grouping as you as well. They'd be really seen as arch conservatives, and you're kind of throwing yourself in the same ring there. And you were very vocal in your opposition to the likes of the repeal of the 8th Amendment, which was passed. So, I mean, do you ever feel that maybe as time goes on, you might be losing your grip of society, moving at a faster rate than you are, maybe liberalising a bit faster, and that maybe over the next few years you'll find support waning? Or do you think that there's a silent but growing minority that agree with you?
I think maybe the latter statement there is more, I think, in line with what's going on. I think there's a growing majority, but unfortunately the majority are maybe afraid to say what they need to say, and I might be the one to say it for them.
I know, but they can vote, Michael, and they can vote, and
they can vote, and you're correct in that, Siobhan. And the proof of that is I got 6,800 4 years ago, and I got 11,700 this time. So, and that's since my views on the 8th Amendment. I never hid them in you. So, like, it wasn't that anybody that voted for me in 2016 didn't realise my views, because I made it open, quite clear. I was totally and utterly and will always be against abortion. In bearing in mind, though, some of my closest friends voted yes for abortion, and I have no issue with that too. I have to respect their views. But remember, 68% did vote, but there's a 32% need representation too. And I know quite a lot today that tell me they wish they never did, because I see already issues that they were kind of felt were never going to rise. I just look, I'm worried about the way this is going to go. There was 6,000 abortions in Ireland last year. I saw that last week, and 3,000 of them were in Dublin. Doesn't matter where they were, their abortions anyway. And look there, and a lot of that I respect. The lady in question could have been in a very difficult circumstance, and I have to fully respect that person. I never disrespect anybody that's had to go through that, because it's a shocking circumstance for any woman to be in, and you know, it has its hallmarks in their mind afterwards, and nobody should throw stones. But I was against it. I don't like the situation that you have in Denmark where there's 0% Down syndrome, and I've been told why, and you know, things like that made me. And look, I suppose, you know, you said I'm linked to the Healy Rays. I certainly am good friends with them. They do their thing and I'll do mine. And the one thing they can no one take away from anybody is they're great people for their constituents. They work around the clock for them. And that's the number one thing. And at the end of the day, I know quite a lot of the people that voted for Michael Collins probably voted yes in the abortion referendum, but they voted for Michael Collins for other reasons, because he worked for them. And they may not have agreed with me on that issue. I got serious criticism on my Facebook for attending rallies or whatever. But look, I didn't mind. I understood that was going to happen. But also, then, you see, there's another thing, and maybe these things I shouldn't bring up. I worked as an undertaker for many years. And the most difficult is to be at a child's funeral, you know. And I see the hurt, and I see the parents, and I see the mother and the father, and their child gone at a very, very young age, whether that's through miscarriage or through whatever circumstance. And it's something that never leave your mind when you see it, and the hurt that they're going through, and the horror. And I know abortion is not like that, but it's the loss of a child. And, I know, but you know, I made a statement recently.
Michael, they're two very different things and very different sets of circumstances, which I don't think we can really align.
No, and I'm not going to lie to that. I'm not going to say they're the same circumstances, but I'm saying the loss of a child leaves a hole in a person's life. And I did say last week in a statement in the Dáil, about, the Black Lives Matter situation. I said all lives matter from the womb to the death.
Well,
And that's the way I'll always be. And I'm not changing.
Phrase has been
And
adopted
Siobhan,
now by far right groups, so it's
I
not,
don't mind. They
not
can say
the
what they
best.
want, but that's
It's not the best phrase to be coming out with, I'm afraid, because it has unfortunately got a very tarnished following now in the US.
it has, and it's my views, and it's the views of the people that I represent. Most have spoken to me and quite happy with the views I have. In relation to abortion, people have different views. I respect that. A decision has been made. I can't turn that around. It's up to the state to turn that around at some stage if they need to. Abortion is as far as I'm concerned, I'm totally opposed to it, and I'm not changing. I'm quite liberal in other issues, but I'm not liberal on that issue.
Well, tell me an issue you're liberal on, Michael.
Well, people might. I know this goes down to church. I think priests marry. Separate. We have to get on with life. I'm separating myself. And I'm not. I might be a perception out there that blocked into religious views. Not at all.
Female priests.
I believe if. Yeah, if that's what.
I think with the numbers dwindling, it might be a necessity in the next decade.
It's maybe not so much the numbers dwindling. It's the fact that the clergy that are there are getting elderly, and
well, that's why it's dwindling. I mean, they're dying off an awful lot of them, and they're not being replaced by.
Yeah. Look, I mean, so I'm open to beliefs. People's sexuality, I've always felt, was 100% their business, and people, and I never interfered in a person's sexuality. That's their business,
So where were you on the marriage equality referendum then?
That's your said in relation to people's view on that. I always said that was their own business. I never interfered in a person's sexuality. If they say to me they're not, that's their business too. That's my attitude. So it's difficult because in issues in the Dáil I get up, and I think most people understand that. They kind of look at me as a politician that's, I might have a different view on certain issues, but in general, they like the work I've been doing. And look, it's up to the people after. Make it very clear that if it cost me my seat in interviews, my views on abortion, so be it. I wasn't for change.
So just a lighter note now. I don't know if you've had any time to walk on a beach or watch Netflix or read a book or listen to music, but if you did, what would those categories be like? What would you be doing? What would you be reading, watching? Where would you be going?
I'd like to, I found it during the COVID thing, I got an incredible amount of phone calls, and people were stressed to the very end. And obviously COVID payments became a massive, massive issue at the beginning. And no matter how good, and they were good, the Department of Social Protection were, there was still a massive flow of phone calls, 60, 70 a day, and more coming to my staff. So we were continuously liaising, trying to get people to let them go easy, we get this started. And, people are stressed. And it didn't give us a lot of freed up time. It looked like we were, but behind the scenes we're working probably above the average, but that's fair enough. What was I doing? I love music, Brian Adams or the Bruce Springsteen in the world, but it doesn't matter what music. I still love music in general anyway. And
well on cue there, the music on your phone.
Oh, it is, yeah, it is. But I did a little bit of walking out in my own area too. But I got into painting. I just love painting. Not artist painting now, but the wall painting of houses and stuff.
Houses.
Sorry. Oh, jeez, I'm not the other time. I wish I was. And I hadn't that much time, but that's what I was doing, a bit of painting and stuff like that, and my free time in the evenings and stuff. So, I just got back because I used to do a bit of painting before, and I got back into that habit again, which is good. So that's actually what I was trying to do, but it wasn't. We didn't get a whole pile of. Do you know another thing I got to do is look at bills as well. And maybe everybody got a chance to do that.
We did.
What am I paying? That was God. I can't believe I was she wouldn't want to know what I was paying in mobile phone bills and stuff like that. But anyway, it got me a chance to start looking into a bit more details that I often said last year, I must deal with that now, and I never got the chance. I did get the chances to deal with those things, and found it, while it was quite frustrating dealing with mobile phone companies or whatever, but I still got chances to do things that I planned for a long time and hadn't got across the line.
Great. And you wouldn't sit down and watch a movie or a series on Netflix?
Oh,
or
I'd love to.
House of Cards
I'd
or
love
anything,
to.
no?
I will admit, though, I have a habit when I sit down, I could go sleep. But I love watching movies. My God, I mean, you know, I love the James Bond or the Indiana Jones. I like a bit clever, but you know, that was the habit. And the kids always say to me, they say, "Oh, such a movie. Should we seen that before?" And I said, "No, I never did." And they said, "You did, but you were asleep when it was on." So I'd always be telling them, I never saw that. I have to watch another James Bond movie. I never saw that before. So, you know, just I have a habit of going to sleep sometimes instead. You know, you'd be tired. But anyway, look, but no, I like watching movies. But I love music, and I like listening to all sorts of, you know, singers right across the board. And
in the car, then, Michael, with all that commuting, is it podcasts? Is it the radio news? Is it music? What is it?
This earpiece.
Oh.
It's people ringing, getting back to them. This is on continuous use. This is me.
Michael's holding up his Bluetooth earpiece now.
This is
who can't see you yet. Your earpiece is in.
Sorry, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm on the phone a lot of the time in the car. Messages continuously, and if that's off, then it's straight into music or listen to 103 of them. Obviously be very interested. Listening to radio stations like that is, you know, it's not saying that I'm making a preference between one radio station and another or the Southern Star. That's local. It's local. Yeah. It's the local paper. It's the locals. I have the Southern Star. I will be saying I'm guilty. I never, if I didn't have the Southern Star every week, I'd be at a loss, scratching my head, going back to Dublin the following week. But sometimes I might have it and I might never get a chance to open it. Just see the headlines as broadband this week and TD's fighting, and I say, oh my God, is that me? No, it's not, thank God. And, you know, but I'll always get a tip off on Thursday. Someone, you know, such things on the Star. So, you know, and the 103 FM, and it's the local stuff, and, you know, it keeps you in touch with what's going on. It's very, very important to keep in touch with what's going on in your constituency from the ground level to whatever. And, you know, all politics, it's Ireland, and all politics is local. And, you know, a lot of the issues I had before me today was the pothole or the you know, the local school transport and or the medical card. So it's all politics is local, you know.
Absolutely. Listen, Michael, thank you so much for joining us today, and really enjoyed our chat, and best of luck in the future.
Thanks.
This week's music is a cover version of the late John Prine's gorgeous song, The Speed of the Sound of Loneliness. Molly O'Mahony from Ballydehob is 1/4 of the well-established all-female folk, blues and indie pop group Mongoose. But here Molly is joined by her siblings Fiachra on guitar and Matilda on vocals, showing that there is plenty more talent in the O'Mahony family. If you want to catch more of their music, follow Molly O'Mahony on YouTube or see mongoosetunes.com.
You come home late and you come home early. You come home big when you're feeling small. You come home straight and you come home curly. Sometimes you don't come home at all. So what in the world's come over you? What in heaven's name have you done? You've broken the speed of the sound of loneliness. You're out there running just to be on the run. Now I got a heart that burns with a fever, and I got a worried and a jealous mind. How can a love that'll last forever get left so far behind? So what in the world's broken the speed of the sound of loneliness. You're out there running just to be on the run. It's a mighty mean and a dreadful sorrow.
Well, thank you for listening to the Southern Star Coronavirus Podcast. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our podcast, which is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Acast, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
We ain't got one word to say. So what in the world's come over you? What in heaven's name have you done? You've broken the speed of the sound of loneliness. You're out there running just to be on the run. So what in the world's come over you? What in heaven's name have you done? You've broken the speed of the sound of loneliness. You're out there running just to be on the run. You're out there running just to be on the run.